What is the questions? What are the questions?
Okay.
Every time I
first
ask you what the
question.
questions are, you no longer have an
The
answer.
first
But when I'm
question.
sitting around doing something, it's all like, oh, answer the questions, answer the questions. But if I'm not, I go,
The
fine.
first
What are the questions?
First question is, how do you pace a comic correctly?
I don't know.
Okay.
'Kay.
Next question.
Wait.
How do you?
Wait, let me do it. How do you pace the comic correctly? You want the pace to match the pace you want, right? Like, which, because if you want it to be, you want to achieve what you want to achieve, right? You need a goal in order to pace things correctly. If you want something to be fast-paced, you got to intentionally make it fast-paced. So it's a matter of knowing what you want and then knowing how to achieve it, right? So what do you want is like one half of it. So like if you have a scene that is actiony, you probably want it to go fast paced, right? Whereas if you're having a very thoughtful scene or like a horrific slow scene where you're like dragging people along like that, or you can be purposefully horribly boring, where you drag things out for the sake of boring your readers, but that's the point. You have to use that one sparingly because it's rude. And you can also move confusingly quick. So that's one part of it. Another part is that like you need the pace to go at a clip which the reader will get out of what you're saying, what you need them to get out of it. And if it moves too slow, they'll get bored. And if it moves too fast, they'll get confused. So you kind of have to balance that. And even then, you have to reiterate things. In order to control pace, you can look at like the size of things, because larger things, like a larger amount of time takes a larger amount to read, which slows the pace. Things that are dense, whether it's dense amounts of like paragraphs and text, or like a very dense comic panel with a lot going on in it, that takes longer to read, which slows your pace down. Whereas more simple panels are quicker. And smaller panels, your readers will spend less time looking at them as well, which slows pace down. And pace is one of those things that like applies to like every molecule, like because a pace because pace like even applies to like your word choice, right? Like everything has a pace to it because the cadence at which you speak has a pace, right? And words have a pace. Like difficult is a longer word than hard is, but they kind of mean the same thing. And then that goes up to like sentences, where sentences have a pace. So like sentences that are really long have that same principle to them as with like everything, where like long sentences, more detailed sentences are slower paced, whereas quick, choppy sentences are like that, and then paragraphs are like that, and then your whole scene is like that. It just like goes out and out, and like pace follows you through the whole thing, which is why it's so difficult, because you could have like a long sentence in a short panel in a long scene, and like where do you what does that even mean for you? But it comes down to it like being like on each level the pace is kind of different. I don't know what I'm saying. I hope it's helpful at all. It's like really it takes a lot to get to understand pace. And I found the best way to do it is to really look into what is it? Beta readers and things, and having people look over your stuff. You want to achieve what you want to achieve. It's true. That's the most important thing that sometimes you forget. Because if someone says you're doing a great job and it turns out you're achieving something completely different to what you're achieving, you're not really doing a great job by your own standards, which are probably the most important, because you want to tell the story you want to tell. You don't want to be telling the story that someone else wants you to tell.
That's true.
Yeah. And with pace, that's the exact same thing. Like, you want to go at the speed that works best for you, but you also need to look at readers and see what they're getting out of it, and if they are getting out of it what you want them to get out of it. I think another thing that helps with pace is, like I said, like there's multiple stages to pace, because there's the overall pace of your story. And if it's a longer story, you're only really going to figure out how to do that through writing longer stories. For me, when it came to learning how to write scenes a lot better, I worked on shorter stories, because short stories work very similarly to writing small scenes. And for writing like better like dialogue, because dialogue in and of itself, like every bubble and sentence and paragraph has its own narrative and story and arc to it as well. Looking at things like poetry, or even like just super short, like 2 to 3 panel comics, can be like a good exercise for that. So that would be my advice on paces.